In 1946, the U.S. Navy embarked on a mission to the most desolate place in the world, Antarctica. The excursion was short-lived, unorganized, and random. It prompted more questions than answers. Officials claimed it was to gather geographical data, but the world speculated the motives were much more sinister. Today, we're investigating Operation Highjump. This is Red Web. Welcome back, Task Force, to another episode of Red Web, the podcast all about unsolved mysteries, true crime, and the unknown. I'm your resident mystery enthusiast, Trevor Collins, and joining me, hearing about this case for the very first time, Alfredo Diaz.
You gotta love something that's up in Antarctica. You know, one of the last few heavily explored places for all of mankind. Instantly, I'm thinking about a horror movie like The Thing.
Yes, always.
Yeah, it's not an easy place to go and visit and travel and do anything with. So you really have to be prepared. And it's quite interesting that even the Navy had issues, you know?
Oh, yeah.
Let alone some kind of private expedition or something.
Right. It's so remote. It's so harsh. I mean, there are people at scientific bases down there now that document it every now and then. You know, they might be on TikTok or whatever. And it's to the point where there are times where you step outside and you can't be outside for more than maybe 30 seconds. You will start to freeze anything that's exposed during the harsh winter, which is actually during our summer. So like right now, it gets pretty gnarly. And I think as far as travel goes, it is very hard to get there because a lot of it is locked behind like you need to be on some sort of scientific endeavor that needs to be greenlit. There is a treaty. We'll talk about the Antarctic Treaty as part of this conversation, but ultimately, it is that very thing that makes Antarctica the subject of so much conspiracy. And we've cracked into this a little bit when we did Hollow Earth as a topic a long time ago. And so this is going to be one of those fun episodes where we talk about, yes, an actual operation, what went down, some of the kind of like misadventures of that operation, and then how they kind of pulled out really quickly. And then we're going to have fun with a lot of the conspiracies that surround, yes, this operation, but also Antarctica in general. And I'll be very curious, Fredo, to hear if you've heard of any of these things, if any of these things kind of make sense to you, or some of these might just be downright outlandish because it's just pure speculation.
Right.
But
sometimes it's fun to just have something that's just like, look, we don't know much. And so here's a bunch of different speculations and it could be anything.
Absolutely. Yeah. And again, Task Force, you know, it's one of those fun episodes riddled with conspiracy. It is unsubstantiated from the top, but we are going to start in a very fact-based way with Operation Highjump. But as always, I want to remind you what's going on in Red Web this week. Well, over at redwebpod.com, we have a live episode of Another Break Room this Wednesday at 6 p.m. Central Time. So come over to our Patreon exclusive Discord channel, hang out with us live. We post those a month later. So if you don't get to see it live, you can come hang out and see it. But if you want to be part of the conversation, part of the episode, come join in live on Wednesday. But with that, let's crack on in. Let me distill this down into your sippy cup of knowledge, which you have a nice golden straw with, I guess, today. Fancy version.
Oh, you got to find something.
Plus it up. All right. So Operation Highjump was a United States Navy mission that commenced on August 26, 1946. The mission was officially titled something much more intricate: the United States Navy Antarctic Developments Program 1946 to 1947, or it's also got a really cool name, Task Force 68.
Oh!
Yeah.
Okay. All right, we sign off on that.
So this mission was quite large, actually. It was comprised of 4,700 people, 70 ships, and 33 aircraft. The expedition was led by two admirals, Richard E. Byrd and Richard H. Cruzen, and they had several objectives, of course, for this mission. They're going very far and spending a lot of money for it, so of course they want to pack in a lot of goals. In no particular order, the first one was to train personnel and test equipment in the extremely cold environment. It's rumored that this was due to the threat of a potential attack, right? We're in the cusp of, let me think of the timeline here, the Cold War. And so the United States is constantly thinking about an attack from the Soviet Union at the time. Maybe they come from the North Pole. We also know Russia in general. The geographical location of it has some pretty harsh conditions, and wars have been won and lost because of those conditions. So, hey, maybe they wanted to train in the harshest environment possible, Antarctica. Another goal was to gather data on the geographic, hydrographic, meteorological, geological, and electromagnetic conditions of Antarctica. It being down at a pole, it's just geographically much more diverse, well, different than the United States.
Right.
It's not really diverse, it's one pretty consistent biome, but very different than what you find in most of the United States. They also wanted to evaluate the sustainability and feasibility of establishing military bases in the area, as well as inspecting possible sites for bases, right? So this is pre-treaty. We're in a world where, maybe the Army or the Navy in this case wants to think about increasing their international footprint. We have Navy and Army bases all over the world. Why not here, right?
I mean, like, what are you going to do up there, though?
Or down there, South Pole.
Yeah, what are you going to do down there?
Hang with the penguins, man.
What is there really? I mean, you're just sending people there to do nothing.
Truly, at the end of the day, yeah. Unless you got your tinfoil hat strapped so tight that the blood can't flow, then we'll get into why maybe they really were there. Oh, I'm so excited.
I mean, that's true. You got to have it strapped on tight.
We've got hats at store.redwebpod.com. Get yours today. But we need, a aluminum or tinfoil hat that has the buckle that, at the back of the hat, there's the adjustable strap thing.
Yes, yeah.
I want that, but on the tinfoil hat. That way I can really, or maybe it's drawstring. So if I really need to cinch it, I just squeeze it, and then I get into the theories.
Dude, if we really had the technology, it would tighten the more out of control your thoughts and conspiracies go. You know what I mean? Like,
it detected it, and so it shrank. So maybe the hotter your head, the tighter it gets.
Yeah,
I like that. Now we're cooking. Another goal, before I get off track too far, was to extend potentially U.S. sovereignty to the largest, most usable part of the continent. Again, these are all high-level goals for Operation Highjump, and in 2007, historian Dion Olsen Belanger revealed that the Navy had been given classified orders to establish a, quote, claim to land in Antarctica. What makes this confession interesting, though, is the fact that when you look at all the information, all the data, all of the goals of this mission retroactively, anything that's been declassified, everything points to the establishment of a temporary base rather than a permanent one. It doesn't seem like the United States was certainly diehard about gathering or scooping up sovereign land and making it part of a claim to land or something like that. But on that note, like I said, I should say this entire operation predates the Antarctic Treaty, which was signed in 1959, and it designated Antarctica as a continent for peaceful purposes. So the whole goal of this was to limit military actions, in fact, prohibit them. Nuclear explosions, prohibited. Any disposal of radioactive waste, prohibited. The primary purpose for this land is scientific research.
I mean, interesting. I didn't know that that's how it was kind of like divvied up amongst the world. So it's pretty cool to know that like it was like, okay, hey, just off limits all around.
Yeah, I looked at it very briefly, so I don't have dates kind of printed in my mind, but it was really interesting because I was like, oh yeah, there's a treaty about Antarctica that I want to talk about. And so when I looked back at that, there is a history of people going there, kind of wanting to make a claim to fame or maybe establish a base or what have you. But again, it's so harsh. None of that ever really worked. And so we're at this peak post-World War II moment where the world is kind of like, can we all just lay off and like maybe we just all agree that this is its own thing, and if we're gonna go there, it's gonna be for science, which I can deeply appreciate.
Right, and I love that too. Yeah, I love the fact that everyone's like, all right, let's just cool off, let's just chill.
Yeah. Especially since you have things like Operation Highjump that are kind of like, maybe we could do something different. Maybe we could use it for the military again, over a decade prior to this treaty. But with that said, Operation Highjump was officially underway. And after months of planning, I think we kicked off in August, the first ships started arriving at nearby islands almost into the next year. It's December 30th, 1946 when ships are arriving.
Oh, wow.
And reports vary, but it's suggested that the ships were docking on the small islands in the Bay of Wales, give you kind of a geographical location, and this was like kind of the starting point. From here, they would then launch aircraft to Antarctica to conduct inland reconnaissance, mapping operations, just surveillance from the sky and things. So it was almost like a base of operations moving from these small islands onto the greater continent. It was a little hairy. I was trying to figure out what other islands they might have operated on and maybe why they didn't make hard landfall, but I think the reason is that a lot of that water is consistently frozen over. And so the easiest thing to do is kind of land on one of the islands and not be at the behest of moving ice and icebergs and things.
Yeah, I mean, it's tough terrain.
And with that, I actually have about 3 images for you here that we're going to talk about, but I'll tell you, Operation Highjump has a lot of photography around it, which I kind of appreciate.
All right.
You see so many helicopters, ships, submarines, and things, but in this particular order, we have the first image here for you is an Operation Highjump ship arriving in Antarctica. So just to give you an idea of what those ships kind of looked like, what the conditions were, of course, black and white.
Whoa, that's a big Navy ship.
Oh, yeah.
It's, your traditional, like, big boy, all kinds of towers and stuff coming off of it. Jesus, it looks packed.
That thing's haunted. That thing's haunted to hell right now.
It's definitely haunted. It's definitely haunted right now, for sure. It's seen some stuff and it's haunted. Yep.
No, it definitely does look like one of those mid-century beefy ships. Solid metal. You knock on that, you'll break a knuckle. The next image is a helicopter that was used during this operation, and it's performing a water landing.
Oh, cool.
Just to, again, show you a variety of some of the aircraft and things that they had. And the third image is actually a plane. Gorgeous looking plane. I actually don't have the model of that plane on me offhand, but Christian, I'm curious if you could whip that up. But beautiful mid-century plane. I'm sorry, love planes. But it's landing on skis. So you can see that they've kind of retrofitted.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, dude. I love that.
Wow, it's beautiful. It looks like chrome and shiny too. So it looks like one of those appropriate planes that they send up to Antarctica. I don't know if it's like I don't know if it has to do with anything, but I don't know. When you watch movies and stuff, it's always like this like chromed out plane going up to the snow, but that's what it looks like.
Absolutely. And every time I see one of these planes, I see Leonardo DiCaprio gently rubbing down the side going, it's got to be smooth. I need all these rivets gone.
Yeah, is it Aviator or something?
Yeah. I think I stepped into a theater mid-Aviator. This is back when you could easily do that. They take your ticket at the front door and then they just go, yeah, you're in some theater. So my dad and I were trying to watch a movie I forget now, but while we waited for that one to start, instead of watching previews, we went and saw like 5 minutes of Aviator. I remember that scene, and he's like, I just want this smooth. I'm like, what is happening?
Hold on now. Calm down there, buddy.
And Kristen, I also put you deeply on the spot, so no harm if you can't figure out that model. I don't know if it's the same as the George 1.
I found one article from cgaviationhistory.org, which sounds like a reputable source. And they only call them R4Ds. Looks like it may be a Douglas R4D or a Douglas C-47 Skytrain.
Interesting. McDonnell Douglas, they used to exist. Now they're part of Boeing and have been for as long as, I don't know if I remember a McDonnell Douglas in my lifetime. Anyway, stunning plane.
Yeah, it's a gorgeous plane.
So, talking about planes, I want to talk about the George 1. So upon arrival in Antarctica, crews immediately set out to reach their goals. And despite months of planning, they went straight into action. They took those months and used them wisely because they hit the ground running. And as they're getting their footing, they're testing out their equipment. They're learning how to operate their aircraft in these frigid temperatures because, again, a lot of these are engineered not for such drastic temperatures. I believe if we're in December, we're in the summer for the Antarctic. And all seemed to be going according to plan up until December 30th, 1946, when unfortunately, tragedy did strike. A Martin PBM-5 plane called George 1 crashed on Thurston Island in Antarctica. This would be around 250 miles from where the ships were stationed, so a bit of a jaunt away. And it's not a small plane by any means. I do have an image of the wreckage if you want to take a look at that, but there were 9 men on board, and only 6 unfortunately survived.
Oh, wow. I'm surprised anyone survived at all. This is in pieces.
Yes, it actually exploded, and we'll talk about that here in more detail.
That makes sense. Some of the pieces look burnt, and then for scale, there's even like, what is it, like 3 or 4 people next to the wreckage, and yeah, the scale of it, like, I'm surprised anyone survived that. Like, it's literally just the tail that's super burnt up, and then I guess like a piece of the wing or something.
Yeah, it looks like on the left is the fuselage, maybe a bit of the tail fin, and maybe this is the wing on the right. There is another image coming up where some of it is kind of labeled by one of the survivors.
Okay.
But as we kind of unfold this particular case, because it is, unfortunately, it's a tragedy, but it's also the cornerstone of some of these conspiracy theories, hence why I felt compelled to mention it. This episode of Red Web is sponsored by Rocket Money. Task Force, I'm sure we've all seen them sticker prices lately just skyrocketing, and dealing with money can be very stressful. You know, trying to track all those subscriptions we've all got, track the spending in general, trying to cut those costs, it can all feel very overwhelming. Luckily, Rocket Money can relieve some of that stress and help you feel confident in financial decisions that you make. Rocket Money is a personal finance app that helps find and cancel unwanted subscriptions, monitors your spending, and helps you lower your bills so you can grow your savings. Rocket Money is going to show all of your expenses in one place, including those subscriptions that you might have forgotten about. And then if you see those subscriptions that you don't want anymore, because I know we all hunt for them, Rocket Money will help you cancel them. Their dashboard lays out your total financial picture, including the bill due dates, the pay dates, all of that, and it's easy to digest. They even automatically create custom budgets based on your past spending. I use Rocket Money, I know Alfredo uses Rocket Money, and it's so easy to see all the money that comes in and out of your bank account, and it categorizes all of it because I am trying to wean back on certain things. And so I can see, hey, when is my payday coming through? Was one month a little bit more expensive than another? Why was that? Was it, oh, because I went on a vacation or what have you? When you swipe that card everywhere, Task Force, that's what I'm saying. It's so invisible. Rocket Money's got your back. Rocket Money's 5 million members have saved a total of $500 million in canceled subscriptions, with members saving up to $740 a year when they use all of the app's premium features. Cancel your unwanted subscriptions and reach your financial goals faster with Rocket Money. Go to rocketmoney.com/redweb. That's rocketmoney.com/redweb. rocketmoney.com/redweb. So like I said, of the 9 men on board, only 6 survived. So the survivors were James Robbins, Ralph Frenchie LeBlanc, William Kearns, Owen McCarty, William Bill War, and H.H. Caldwell. Most of the men only sustained, thankfully, 1 or 2 broken bones or some impact bruising, injuries, things like that. But LeBlanc himself, of the survivors, was pretty badly burned, which does make sense. And I was so curious because they didn't just survive the crash. They survived on this island for 13 days before they were even discovered as to where they were and then rescued.
Whoa. Just out there for 13 days?
Yeah, dude. It feels kind of like the Terror, you know, like the ship that got lost up in Canada and things. Yeah.
Yeah, that was
wild.
Yeah, I'd be very interested to see how the heck they did that. I mean, I guess what supplies that they had from the crash, like, damn.
So I have this further down in my notes, but I wanted to find it. So they essentially survived off of what was on the plane when they crashed, and thankfully it was quite a large aircraft. They were equipped with pre-made emergency rations, they had tents, they had sleeping bags, so they could at least somewhat deal with the weather. They weren't perfectly equipped, but they had a few things that they could ration out. And Robbins himself actually stated that they only ate 1 meal a day to make sure it could last as long as possible, hoping that, you know, they could be found, that they could then be rescued. And to keep their sanity and to keep themselves entertained, they often played the Navy game called Salvo, which in my very cursory search on that, it seems like a handwritten kind of thing, but it looks very much like a modern day battleship. I believe maybe the only rule adjustment is that you both fire at the same time, but if anybody knows that game, I'm happy to be corrected there. But coming back a little bit, there were 3 individuals who passed in this crash. That was Ensign Maxwell A. Lopez and Aviation Radioman First Class Wendell K. Henderson and Frederick W. Williams. Lopez and Henderson were reportedly killed instantly, and Williams passed just 2 hours later. So, speaking of Robbins, he's the one who kind of recounted the situation, how they survived on rations and things. He has since written about his experience, and this is where a lot of that information comes from. And he stated, of course, we know well now, that the plane exploded in the air. And we do have a diagram. I believe these are his drawings, but they're, if not his drawings, they're at least his labelings of all of the pieces. It's a scanning from his experiences.
Oh, this is very detailed. Yeah, these are very detailed sketches. And it's just the two pieces that we were talking about earlier, along with a bunch of little pieces. And then on the bottom left is overall sketch of the plane itself.
Yeah.
And it's got all kinds of like notes pinging off of every little detail.
Yeah.
This is a full page.
And actually, if you look closely in the top right, it tries to reference the photograph we just looked at. And so you do see, as he's labeled, the tunnel section or the fuselage. And this is where it said our foul weather home. So when the wind picked up, they would tuck themselves into the back end of the plane here that was still mostly intact. And then you see the starboard rudder. But then next to that, as you astutely pointed out, there's like 3 small individuals and you get that scale. And Chief McCarty is kind of labeled there. Captain H.H. Caldwell's labeled, as well as Bill Kearns, who was the co-pilot. And then you see a couple of other things spread throughout. You see some of the tents were some of the small things. You've got the leading edge of the wing, who has some names on it, and I'll talk about that here in just a second. But you also have then a sketch of what the George 1 looked like prior to the crash on December 30th.
Yeah.
Very interesting detail. So, as we kind of now have seen, the hull had been torn, and that then led to the hull tank leaking 145 octane fuel, which, as you can imagine, is highly combustible. Yep. And it then ignited, or was ignited by the exhaust flames from the engine. And Robbins, when recounting the flight that day, obviously they're not knowing all these finer details are happening, but this is what they diagnosed. He reports that he felt a large bump, followed by what he said was the feeling of floating. And this was the last he remembers before he was woken up by Bill Warr, so one of his colleagues there.
Oh.
So I imagine the bump was the initial maybe explosion, or at least whatever caused the leak of the fuel. And then the floating, it seems, is like free fall. Like if you're floating in a plane, it's only because you don't have the wind whipping at you, but you're kind of hitting a 0G as your plane is suddenly coming down out of the sky.
It's wild, but I guess lucky that he's not like, and then the panic and the trauma, you know what I mean?
Right. Well, maybe he goes into more detail in his own writings, but right. For our purposes, yeah, just kind of high level. But yeah, like I said, he then recounts how they lasted those 13 days. And then finally, after 13 days, they had been rescued via plane and were immediately returned to the United States. They're like, sir, I don't know if I want to work anymore. Maybe I could go back home.
That's what I'm saying. Give me whatever leave you can give me. I'm out.
Right. Please. A rescue mission was not able to be performed earlier, and we've seen this many times in the past, especially with aviation mysteries, due to severe weather. Simply enough, it's a tough decision to make, but it's very difficult to say, let's put more people at risk in hopes of finding other people. And so that's why, 13 days, they're 250 miles out. They do have a flight plan, but still they have to be found almost like a needle in a haystack combined with the weather.
Yeah, that's the tragedy. And you see it in film, television, just like right here in real life, where just like, do you sacrifice 10 people to possibly save one? Like, how do you measure the cost of lives there? And it's just, it's not a good position to be in.
Yeah, very impossible decisions to make for sure, but you have to mitigate further risk. And so anyway, thankfully, the survivors were found and rescued, and off they went home to recuperate, rest, and heal. Robbins actually, while there, surviving there on that island, had painted on the wing the names of the deceased to relay pertinent information to the rescue mission. This was basically, I would wager, if he didn't survive, if they didn't survive, it was to say who perished in the crash. But suffice to say, it remains there to this day. It hasn't been moved or removed. And I have an image actually I want to show you. It shows Lopez, Henderson, Williams, and it kind of sits there on the island now almost as a headstone to those lost individuals.
Oh, wow. Wow.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, Lopez, Henderson, Williams, and then dead.
Yeah, pretty blunt, but fair enough. Clarity.
I mean, straight to the point. It's not, can't really be subtle in this and what's happening and what you're going through and everything. Is,
Yeah.
relay information, get straight to the point.
I mean, that's what this was, right? It was to say, hey, these 3 have perished. If you can see this now, you know. It was less of a monument and more of a let's relay pertinent information, but it does, in its own way, sit now as a monument. And despite this crash, operations for the mission continued as normal. So I want to talk now a little bit more about Operation Highjump, and then we'll dive into these conspiracies and kind of shake those out of the tree and see what you think.
Okay.
A few weeks later, on January 15th, 1947, they were able to find a functional site to establish their base. And they called this base Little America 4, or Roman numeral 4. And I was curious. I was like, well, what is Little America 1 through 3?
Right.
So per Wikipedia, because there's a lot of detail within this. So thank you, Wikipedia, for collating all this information. In their words, they say Little America was a series of Antarctic exploration bases that were established anywhere from 1929 to 1958. They're primarily located in the same vicinity as we're talking about, the Ross Ice Shelf here in the south area of the Bay of Whales. And each of these were built on ice that slowly moves, eventually breaks off, becomes icebergs. So none of these were intended to be permanent. But what I find so interesting is that there's echoes of like 1700s America, the English coming over to colonize America. That's kind of what this feels like in a weird way. Richard Byrd, the admiral who's leading Operation Highjump, established Little America 1 on January 1929, 30 years prior to this, and then it was abandoned. Kind of reminds me of Roanoke, where it was it was like abandoned, but people disappeared and people went back and forth, etc.
Mm-hmm.
But anyway, the next one, Little America 2, was 1934, etc. There's several bases, but we're talking, about the primo, the cream of the crop, Little America 4.
Little America 4, number 4. I mean, what a naming convention. That's how you know there's I don't know what you had to get in there.
Right.
Little America 4.
And there was a couple more to come up through 1958 until the treaty was signed and they said, let's not do that. But the base focused on the air exploration of the area. Their focus was to build a completely comprehensive map of Antarctica's coastline with as much of the interior as possible. All in all, they captured over 70,000 photos of Antarctica. And again, I referenced the images I showed you earlier, the ship, the helicopter, the airplane on skis. These were all tools at their disposal to survey and understand the Antarctic area and take these photos. While they were successful in meeting their objectives of the mission, many still felt it came to an abrupt end sometime in late February 1947. The exact day in February of this mission ending is actually a bit unclear, despite how well documented this whole thing is. So we're talking August 1946 start, land December 30th, and just within 2 months, they kind of do their thing, a wreck happens, they get 70,000 photos, and then they just kind of end, which is another piece for the conspiracy theorists to kind of work with. A lot of them lean on this sudden, abrupt ending to say, something else is afoot.
Yeah, when you put that many resources into something and then it ends so abruptly, there's going to be theories.
Now, I will say, the documented ending of this mission was said to be due to the incoming winter and supplies issues. And yes, winter doesn't officially start, I believe, until June in Antarctica, but looking at the weather in general in the area, March kind of marks the beginning of deterioration, where winds start to pick up, temperatures start to drop. So it is their fall for all intents and purposes. I mean, it is their fall. It's just hard to think about it like that, being in the Northern Hemisphere.
Yeah.
Many participants felt that this mission was unorganized, scattered, with many pointing a finger to the Navy at large rather than to the leaders like Byrd or Cruzen. In addition to that, we have 4,700 people who were deployed, making this the largest Antarctic mission to date, and probably that there ever will be now that the treaty has been signed. It's hard to say if this was excessive or unusual regarding the number of troops deployed, since that number would vary depending on the mission and other historical contexts for operations around the world, but it's quite a number of people for an Antarctic mission, and again, it's another one of those elements that people lean on for conspiracy.
Yeah, I mean, you're like you were saying, you really got to compare it to other things. Like sitting here hearing this, I have nothing to go off of. That could be sizable. It's a good amount of people being sent down there. But also compared to what? You know what I mean? Like if
Right.
a mission of a similar scale was 12,000 and all of a sudden it's like what 4,500, it's like, well, actually it's not that much at all compared to usual.
Right.
They're spending a lot less in terms of people and resources, but you'd have to compare and contrast between different operations. Yeah,
It does seem like they're sparing no expense. They're getting a lot of people in a very distant, desolate place, feeding them, housing them, making sure everyone is as safe as possible, right? I mean, yeah, you really have an expensive endeavor on your hands. But another element, as we start to wean towards the theories here that people lean on, given the proximity to the end of World War II, some felt that this mission was strange, that it must have ulterior motives. And I don't blame anybody for, we have the Great War, then we have World War II, we're living now with the Cold War era, and UFOs are really starting to pick up here in the near 50s. It's coming around the corner. And so, yeah, psychology is amok. You know, you kind of go from these very noisy, chaotic decades to, well, it can't just be that simple. If we're doing something this big, it must be something else. So I get that, right? The psyche shift of it all. But a lot of people then say, well, maybe the government is doing more than they're willing to divulge, especially with all these people and such an expensive effort. But again, this has sparked the speculation that the so-called true mission of Operation Highjump was any number of conspiracy theories. And of course, we know what the mission was. We kind of went over it, and it's all of these stones left unturned, these odds and ends here. It's drawing the red web a little bit.
Yeah.
But also when the government is the main ingredient in the stew, you got conspiracy central, right?
For sure.
That's just what's going to happen.
But it's just interesting because it's like, this is primo tinfoil hat kind of mystery because,
Yeah.
you know, they went up there to explore just like a lot of other people did too as well, a lot of different countries.
Mm-hmm.
And then, I don't know, you could chalk it up to like the harsh environment and how there's probably not much or anything at all out there. And so they were just like, you know what? Yeah, no, like we set foot here, we tried, wasn't worth it. Yeah, done. Let's pack up, go home. And everyone's like, what do they find? What does it mean? But we have like nothing in terms of like documents that they uncovered something or anything. It's literally just like they went there and then they left.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, we got 70,000 photos, folks. There's lots to look at. But then again, I'm not even going to cover this in the conspiracies that I've got outlined, but just off the cuff, since I breathe this stuff, like there are people that look at these photos, much like photos of Mars, and they go, what's that? There's a pyramid here on Antarctica, and that you found it and you're covering it up. I forgot about that. I don't talk about that here in the episode, but it's true. People think within these photos
Pyramid?
that there's a pyramid or some sort of ancient structures that, you know, like, and that becomes its own kind of runaway theory of what could that mean? Was it a lush rainforest? You know, all of that sort of stuff kind of comes with it.
A lush rainforest, that'd be, wow. I mean, I need something though. I mean, it'd be cool. It'd be awesome.
Yeah.
Part of me is like, oh man, I hope that's real. But yeah, I need something.
You got to have the something, right?
Yeah.
We got to get that scientific method engine turned on, and then I'm on board.
Yes.
Fun speculation, but if we're going to start believing these things and swallowing the red pill or the blue pill, I don't know what matrix pill it was, then we need a little bit more evidence. But yeah, no, unless you go back to Pangea, then we go way, way back, then of course everything was different.
Right. They're taking it super far back.
All right. Before we go too wild, I want to start with some of the, okay, it starts wild. What am I going to kid myself? It starts pretty wild, but there are, I would say, 3 of the leading conspiracies. We're going to talk about those. And then at the end, I'll kind of like mention a few more interesting takes, but there's not much else to say about them. Let's start with the first one. This is a recently circulated theory, and it's the idea that this mission's directive was to determine if you would hit the so-called ice wall at the edge of the world. The idea is supposed to indicate that Earth is flat instead of a globe, and that flat Earth, that plate of Earth, is surrounded by an impenetrable ice wall barrier that is, and this is, it keeps getting weirder, is protected by NASA. You know, the greatly funded, overly funded and budgeted NASA. Sorry, my NASA friends, I love you. You need more funding for your scientific endeavors. But that's sorry, I'm painting this with my opinion all over the place. You know you could step out into your garden, okay, and disprove flat Earth. Flat Earth is so beyond comprehension in basic physics tests that I'm putting that out there. I'm sliding that I wrote that on a Post-it note and I'm sliding it gently across the table to you.
Yeah, I mean, this is a hard one to chew on for sure.
Mm-hmm.
Or it's just like, come on. We could just say no.
I want to suspend disbelief, but this one, come on, guys.
Flat Earth.
What are we doing out here? They've disproven themselves, I'll say, with high-tech laser equipment, with the curvature of the Earth. They're like, well, if the Earth was flat, this laser should be going right through this hole, but it's instead coming up 6 feet up higher. Well, it's because the
curvature,
the Earth's curved.
Yeah.
But okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Anyway, but that's what many people, or at least a small swath of people, believe, is that the goal was to set off an operation to go to the ends of this flat Earth and see if there's anything beyond it, right? And to see if we could penetrate it or what have you. I'd say we did that in the 60s. It was up when we went to space. But beyond that, it's a very interesting theory. There's no indication that anyone associated with this mission believed in the flat Earth theory, that this was part of the mission, let alone that this mission was in pursuit of verifying this theory, right? It's a very recent, almost anti-intellectual take, to be pretty blunt about it.
Right. I agree.
Now, this is where the fun starts. Another theory that's been widely circulated is that while on the mission, Admiral Byrd discovered the existence of UFOs.
Oh.
Now, this UFO sub-conspiracy, this theory, takes many different forms, but one of the popular cornerstones is Admiral Byrd. And I want to say that we talked about it in the Hollow Earth episode, right? That's really interesting. That's a fantastic idea. It's still not the thing, but it's much more entertainable than flat Earth. Anyway, I'll get off that train. But I want to say that we talked about this because I remembered this story. So, and I don't know if we went into this detail, so let me just kind of dive back into it. So according to reports, Byrd kept a personal journal detailing his experiences during Operation Highjump. Some reports state that this journal was found by his son after death. Others report that an Ohio State archivist found this journal while cataloging his papers on the matter. Either way, it seems to be a post-mortem revelation that Admiral Byrd's journals were discovered. And in this journal, Byrd writes about hearing of an entrance to the center of Earth that was accessible near the South Pole, right? That he's flying this plane and that he found this large opening in the Earth and was able to then fly down into it. From there, again, according to the journal, he says that his plane was controlled by unknown forces and he witnessed countless UFOs flying all around him. And this is the traditional sense of UFOs, unidentified things that are flying around you.
Multiple UFOs too.
Yeah, not just like those saucers,
Right.
So within this story, he was reportedly led to have a conversation with someone he titled the Master, who scolded him about humanity's use of nuclear weapons. And this also aligns with reported alien interest in atomic weapons, like we discussed in our recent episode on the Malmstrom UFO, where many eyewitnesses saw a bright light flying over a military base at the very same moment that 10 nuclear ICBMs were completely shut down and disabled. So Byrd continues to write in his journal that when he spoke about his experiences, he was ordered to stay silent and that the details then became classified. And the only way that these details came out is when people regarding either his son or an archivist found the journal and made them public.
Interesting.
Now, this is a bit of a side tangent to that, but it's still related to aliens or UFOs. So many have pointed to this as evidence of a greater intelligence making its home base there in the depths of Antarctica. There are scientific bases there now. None of them have reported seeing this. People have been to the South Pole and have not seen this large hole. Many point to this as evidence of hollow Earth, but either way, it's a very interesting story. And many think it's credible because if it was in his journal and he didn't make it public, other people did. He's got no reason to lie. It's like his personal diary.
Right.
But again, it's missing that evidence. As fantastic as it is, I'd love for it to be true. It's just missing any other eyewitnesses or any other experiences that mirror this.
Yeah, I need more.
Now, as a subtle pivot on this UFO alien conspiracy, there's a different angle here. So many theorists point to the timeline of the departure. Though officially attributed to bad weather and logistical strain, some believe that the mission ended prematurely due to an unreported confrontation or discovery. Could have been anything, but the vague end date and the lack of transparency have fueled, of course, rumors of a so-called forced removal, that something or a greater intelligence pushed the Navy to leave this area. And many also point to the George 1 crash as potential UFO interference or something else, whether it was an accident or the plane was taken down or attacked, dare I say. People have said it's the timeline and that crash that all make me think there's an intelligence there that wants us to be gone.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, what little do you have to go off of, right? The plane crash. And if we're talking about like UFO sightings and stuff like that, and it's like, all right, let's connect that, because that'll have to connect in so much shape or form. It's a cool story to be like, it was shot down, but also a little hard to swallow when it's like, yeah, and then the United States ran with their tail between their legs, kind of.
Right.
You know what I mean?
I don't know. Again, I can see a wonderful story unfolding, an interesting movie to be sure. But I gotta get a little bit more of a morsel. I gotta get my teeth sunken into this before I can really go any further. So again, that's why I'm very clear that these are conspiracies rather than actual theories, right? So moving on though, this one's really, really interesting and starts to tap into a few other ideas, other theories. This episode of Red Web is sponsored by Mint Mobile. You know what doesn't belong in your epic summer plans and all those adventures of ghost hunting? Getting burned by your old wireless bill. While you're planning beach trips, barbecues, 3-day weekends, and ghost hunting with your boys, your wireless bill should be the last thing holding you back. That's why you should switch to Mint Mobile. Listen, all plans come with high-speed data and unlimited talk and text delivered on the nation's largest 5G network. Use your phone with any Mint Mobile plan and bring your phone number along with your existing contracts. Ditch overpriced wireless and get 3 months of unlimited service from Mint Mobile for $15 a month. I gotta be honest with you, Task Force, Mint Mobile has me. I swapped over to their plan, and it is so much more cost effective than the plan I had before, and the dead zones that I used to deal with in my area, I don't have to deal with anymore. I still have all the data I need. I call, I text, I have all that unlimited. So really, I haven't noticed a huge difference other than it being way cheaper and having less dead zones. I don't know why that surprised me, but I'm very pleasantly surprised with Mint Mobile. This year, skip breaking a sweat and breaking the bank. Get this new customer offer and your 3-month unlimited wireless plan for just $15 a month at mintmobile.com/redweb. That's mintmobile.com/redweb. Upfront payment of $45 required, equivalent to $15 a month. Limited time new customer offer for first 3 months only. Speeds may slow above 35 gigabytes on unlimited plan. Taxes and fees extra. See Mint Mobile for details. So some believe that fresh off the heels of World War II, Operation Highjump was a mission to discover the existence of a rumored Nazi base in Antarctica. When a German U-boat arrived at an Argentinian naval base in July of 1945, a newspaper put out a false article claiming that the U-boat was carrying Hitler and other high-ranking members of the military, taking them from Germany, bringing them to Argentina out of Germany from a secret base in Antarctica. And it's interesting to know that this is a false article that just kind of put this out there, because so many theories come from this very idea. Have you ever heard any of this?
Oh, that's wild. Just carrying all these figures like that?
This is where I will flex my ignorance. And maybe, Christian, if you don't mind helping me out here, I do know that there is a relatively large German footprint in Argentina that I believe is factual, but I'll let Christian help me out here. And I don't know if it's a conspiracy that is activating that, or if it's the fact that people think that Hitler escaped rather than committing suicide there at the end of the war. But there are theories that the Germans escaped to make a separate footprint, and Argentina is one of those things. And like I said, Antarctica is another one of those locations, just somewhere where they couldn't be found or where they could lay low underneath the guise of other governments so they could rebuild and repopulate other governments and repercolate their ideas is kind of the greater.
That's such a grand plan.
Right. And I'm like, or they lost, right?
Right.
And like, yes, there are people that emigrate all over the world, certainly from Germany too. But again, that's where I want to be honest about my ignorance on the matter. I know that there are Germans for sure in Argentina, but as far as like Hitler and other high-ranking officials escaping to Argentina,
Right.
let alone through Antarctica,
Yes.
wild concept. There are many other theories kind of like that, but completely unsubstantiated and mostly pivoting around this false article.
Yeah, we talked about how it's just gonna be wild, just absolutely wild theories. Like this is this is wild. It is out there.
Yeah, to speak to what you were asking about in regards to the German population in Argentina, there was a substantial German community already present in the country before World War II.
Okay.
And during World War II, there was a lot of discourse amongst the German community. There were some who were pro-Nazi, some anti-Nazi. There's actually, it's Operation Bolivar was a code name for German espionage in Latin America, and I believe a large part of that stemmed from their presence in Argentina. And then it is confirmed that in the 40s, after World War II had ended, more than 300 Nazi fugitives fled to Argentina.
Okay.
People like Joseph Mengele was one of them.
Wow. Okay. So lightly substantiated in some regards in the sense that, yes, people did flee there, but mostly because of the pre-existing German population that was already there. And so some of that reality then spun off into a greater theory that it might have been a bigger effort. Okay, very interesting. Because I didn't want to whip this reference out, but I see you got your Wolverine tank on.
What?
Your, your
my
sleeveless
election
shirt.
tank. Yeah.
Uh-huh.
Yeah.
And so I'm thinking like, well, I don't know if this was fact or fiction, but I do know Magneto, who was German, ended up in Argentina, and he's speaking German to a couple of ex-Nazis and puts the period on the end of their life. But I didn't know if that was stemming based on like real history or if that was just fantastic. But very interesting and very complex, as with any high-level government anything. You have someone as high profile as Hitler, whether they die or not, there's always going to be people that go, no, I don't think he did. I mean, Tupac's still alive.
Yeah. That's a popular one.
Whoever else, nothing else comes to mind off the top of my head, but there's a lot of historical figures that passed away and were believed to have gone underground or escaped somewhere. And
Walt Disney.
Disney's head, that's factual. Yep.
Cryogenically frozen or something.
Right. So getting us back on track of the theory, though, and adding a tiny bit more factual color as to this particular theory so it doesn't feel so wildly outlandish, Germany did conduct a mission in Antarctica in the late 1930s. However, it was primarily to establish a whaling station to gather more fat from whales, so it's not like it was an intended, military base.
Right, yeah.
But what's interesting is that it doesn't stop people from trying to combine Operation Highjump with the idea of Operation Paperclip, which itself is a whole different thing, but in brief, it was a secret U.S. intelligence program designed to bring over 1,600 German scientists, engineers, technicians, just brilliant minds from the World War II Nazi Germany era, bring them over to America to advance the American military, but also technological capabilities. And so a lot of people were like, okay, let's pull it all together. Germans were down there, Hitler escaped, they've got a base there, and this is all part of Operation Paperclip, disguised. And I'm like, all right, so
we're just reaching on different, like trying to grab anything for like leverage.
Right. And that's where the conspiracy corkboard really starts going and the red strings flying. But I'm like, there's not a lot anchoring any of this down.
No.
But like I said, those are the major conspiracies behind the operation. And there are almost countless others of much more speculative in nature that claim Operation Highjump was purely an exploratory mission set out to prove each of the claims themselves. There's not much detail in any one of these, but for the sake of curiosity, there are a few that I wanted to explore just for the sake of, honestly, entertainment at this point.
Right. Yeah. This is definitely like the entertainment type of like mystery where it's like, look,
right.
If we probably just went there and then we ejected, but here are some people trying to make some dots connect here.
So I teased it a little bit, and I think I've sprinkled this throughout episodes because I find it so fascinating. But some believe that the mission itself was aimed to locate remnants of a lost pre-human or ancient civilization of some kind, some advanced city or continent of some scale, right, that was now buried under the ice in Antarctica. And rumors cite that they used ground-penetrating radar, and, well, of course they might, because if they want to map the actual landmass underneath the ice, they kind of need that. But many think, no, they found unnatural structures, pyramids, right, like I was talking about, and they just aren't declassifying that. They're keeping it close to the chest because they might have found something. You think of like Atlantis, El Dorado, these missing cities of old, to the point where some believe that Antarctica is the resting place of Atlantis.
Really?
Yeah.
Just like the what's left of it?
Yeah, that's where it was, and that some cataclysm happened and it was either drowned, buried, or otherwise, and now it just happens to reside in this great frozen fortress, essentially.
Wow.
But this starts to open up an entirely other topic, but the theory leans primarily on the Piri-Reis map and some writings from Charles Hapgood, who argued that ancient seafarers mapped Antarctica before it was ice-covered. So the Piri-Reis map is a world map that was compiled back in 1513 by the Ottoman admiral and cartographer Piri-Reis. I do actually have an image of it for you if you want to take a look at it. It's essentially a third of what it once was, supposedly. And the idea here is that when people look at this map, they believe that, oh, we discovered Antarctica way before our history books say we did, and this map is proof, it shows the coastline, etc. Therefore, there must be some sort of ancient knowledge of it, implying that there must have been peoples there. Is kind of the domino effect of thinking.
Yeah, this is a cool looking map.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I don't know. It's just the map itself is beautiful because it looks all like weathered and everything like that. The art on it is beautiful and gorgeous. But yeah, I mean, this would be like big. There's so many things that were mapped on here.
Right.
There was a whole bunch of life and civilizations that were popping off right now over here.
I mean, we could look at this and maybe if there's enough here, it could become its own full episode, I feel like. It's an interesting artifact, to be sure.
Yeah, there's so many different pieces like broken up, like cities, and like every piece of landmass is designated for something.
Mm-hmm. All the tributaries and little islands and rivers, the coastline, and yeah, it's wonderfully beautiful. But again, I didn't dive too much into that because it's a whole other subject matter, so I, again, will flex my ignorance on the deeper knowledge of the Piri-Reis map. But I've heard of it before. I think it's very interesting. But that's kind of where this idea of an ancient alien, Antarctic, Atlantis, or some sort of advanced pre-history civilization exists. That's kind of the idea. Some other speculations include the idea that the expedition found or discovered strange energies or radiation signatures detected under the ice. The anomalies, believed by some, were evidence of buried tech, unknown power sources, or potentially portals. Again, we start to get very ambiguous with the assignments here as we kind of lose hard ground to stand on. But in some more extreme circles, the fringe of the fringe, Operation Highjump was described by some as a military confrontation with non-human entities inhabiting the polar region. Again, this is the one I think that I've either said to you guys over the years as an interesting thought, story, or I might have mentioned it in episodes, but many people believe that there is an impenetrable part of Antarctica, that military convoys or scientific convoys, when down there, have to take completely out of the way routes to get to where they're going rather than just straight on, not because of the terrain, the weather, the ice, what have you, but instead because they're trying to avoid something, that there's something aggressive there, whether it be a non-human entity or, I don't know, a cryptid or what have you. But it kind of dovetails in with the idea of ancient aliens and maybe there being a secret treaty between governments around the world and beings here. But again, there's not much else to say.
Dang, that'd be pretty wild. Also, like,
yeah,
how is stuff not leaked from that, you know?
Right. You know what I mean? Like,
I feel like there'd be so many people trying to like whistleblow on that.
Especially if there's something that dangerous down there that you're kind of like, I'm a little terrified.
Yeah, because then people instead they'll start feeling righteous. You know what I mean? You're like,
yeah.
Hey, this is for the betterment of mankind. Everyone needs to know.
We've had people do more for less. We've talked all about, your John Titers of the world, but Bob Lazar, that's the name I'm looking for. The whistleblowers of just advanced technology, let alone advanced aggressive defenses,
True.
But yeah, so some people think that that's why it came to an end sooner is because the Navy ran into a little bit of this or that, and then they were like, all right, we got to bounce. We never go back.
Yeah, I don't know about this whole... I mean, like I said, it's cool in theory, but a whole treaty that's just so expansive.
Yeah. Yep. It's all very fascinating, and again, that's part of what this podcast does, is it dabbles with the unknown in a way it's safe to unpackage it. We're not just going to go believing everything, even if I want to.
Right.
Man, again, those thicked up aliens are somewhere, in an infinite galaxy.
We'll continue to look for them.
We're going to find them, too. And I'll let you know. But I need that evidence first.
Yeah, we do.
I want those ghosts, but I got to have the evidence first. So as we come to a close on this really interesting, almost palate cleanser of an episode, exploring some fun ideas, I do want to say the mission itself appeared to many as haphazard and directionless. However, there is no evidence that suggests that there were any ulterior motives to Operation Highjump. I think we can look at our own military, government, over time, over history, or even today, and you can always see that as professional and as buttoned up as everything feels like it should be, it isn't always that way. People are still people.
Right.
And so operations, even if they're expensive or large, can still feel a little disorganized.
Yeah, I mean, it also depends on the pressure too, right?
Yeah.
They could be going out there unprepared or spending a ton of money to get things moving fast because, a nation wants to be first, wants to be quick to potentially find something, etc.
Right.
Just to figure out it's a waste of time.
Totally. I mean, I'm sure some suit in a nice air-conditioned room, they got insoles in their shoes and they are comfortable.
Comfy.
You know what I'm saying? They got the shoes off, foot on the desk, and they're thinking, listen, bucko, I'm thinking that there might be a giant diamond or a giant nugget of gold on that there frozen continent.
Yep.
And I'll be damned if America doesn't get that and put that whole diamond on one ring just for me, right?
America.
There's a lot of reasons why somebody would want to go to an unexplored area because
the potential, and
yeah.
also it's just like everything else is explored. Why not? You know what I mean?
Sure.
Like I don't know. Humans like to consume, so it's like, oh, we haven't quite consumed another location. How do we monetize it in some way, shape, or form, or just claim it?
Mm-hmm. Maybe they find oil and the thing starts leaking like crazy, and then I don't know. But like I said, today Antarctica is protected by the Antarctic Treaty, established in 1959, which prevents the militarization of the continent. And scientists everywhere rejoice as you continue to study in peace on that beautiful continent. I would love to go someday. I feel like it could. There's still a part of me that thinks it might be haunted, but I don't have any reason for it. But if I found some ancient human ghosts or an alien ghost, now we're cooking.
Man, well, we do until it happens, and then we don't.
And then I'm deeply terrified, and everything ends.
Exactly. I take it back. I take it back.
I take it back. I don't want it. This is cursed knowledge. I mustn't read from the book. Well, as we come to an end of another episode of Red Web, I would be remiss if we didn't shout out our beautiful task force members over at redwebpod.com. This week, we have Adrian Estes as our newest elite member of the task force. Welcome aboard. We also have buff scientist member Insomnia Deja Vu. And our weekly squonks. This week, we have Andy Schrock, Azrael, and Gavin Day. Just to name a few. You guys got Fredo to flex just then.
Yeah, it was for those squawks that I'm hunting, and then the fellow buff scientist. You know what I'm saying? We out here.
Mm-hmm.
We out here slanging and banging some weight.
Jeez, you know what? You could pick up a beaker or two, I could tell.
I may be able to, but don't send me out in the field because I need to make sure that I need to keep testing and making sure that everything is kosher back at HQ.
Oh, right. Yeah, we need our security down pat.
This is glamorous. None of it's functional whatsoever. Cannot be used in the field.
It's synthol and other latexes.
Exactly.
It's an illusion.
It's a skin suit on. Don't worry about it. It's not really what it looks like. Don't need to go out there with you.
Fair enough. Fair enough. Well, with that, you've signed the contract. I know it's already there. It's dusty. I framed it, and you will be coming with me. But with that, thank you very much, Task Force, for another episode of Red Web. And Fredo, I'll see you right back here next Monday for yet another mystery.